Hey everybody, I'm Alan with Bricks and Blocks Gaming, and in this video for the game of Stargrave, I'll be discussing the Fling Power, explaining what it does, suggesting some strategies for using it, and giving my opinion for it. So let's get to the bricks and blocks of Fling. In the main Stargrave book, Fling is one of the core powers for the Biomorph background. It has an activation number of 8, causes 1 strain damage when successfully used, and is unique in being both a touch and self-only power, which I'll elaborate on later in the video. The first ability of Fling is to move an allied figure. This function has a touch range, which means the figure has to be within 1 inch and line of sight. That figure is moved 6 inches in any direction, including up, but since they're thrown, they don't land well and are stunned. The second ability of this power is to target an enemy figure that's in combat with the activator, so not quite a touch ability since it doesn't have a 1 inch range in this use. But it's not really a self-only function either since it's not targeting the activator. When used this way, the figure makes a fight roll with a target number of 16. If successful, they resist the power. If failed, they're thrown up to 6 inches and are left stunned. And I'll point out that against opponents, this power can't move the target vertically. But if there's a lot of raised terrain on the battlefield, it can still easily be used to injure enemies that get flung off buildings and other elevated obstacles. The fact that this power contains the self-only wording makes it seem at first glance that the activator can fling themselves, but based on the entirety of the text, they aren't allowed to move themselves with this power. And large figures can't be flung either. When using this power on an ally, there's some good and bad things about it leaving the target stunned. Being stunned means the figure gets a +2 bonus against all shooting attacks, so if a sniper gets flung into a vantage point, this can help protect them until they activate. Losing actions from being stunned is a bummer, but using it on a figure that's already reduced to 1 action from being wounded or poisoned, or being flung earlier in the turn, means they won't actually lose an additional action. But due to the touch range, this power will often get early usage while figures are deployed in close proximity and haven't had their actions reduced by anything. There is something weird about the stunning effect of this power if it's used in the middle of a group activation. A commander and a soldier could both do their move actions, then the commander can fling the soldier before they use their second action. The wording for stunned only mentions reducing actions when the figure is activated, not in the middle of their activation. And while I haven't received an official answer about this, the author has stated for Frostgrave that a figure's number of actions are determined when they activate. So becoming wounded or poisoned in the middle of an activation won't reduce their actions until the next turn in that game. So I believe this is the same case for stunned in Stargrave. And this is a situation that can also happen if a character stuns themselves from a bad grenade throw on their first action before they've moved. Meaning this situation isn't limited just to the Fling power. So it is kind of strange the flung soldier could perform their second action, perhaps moving further, shooting, or unlocking loot, while they're stunned. Also, the author has stated that unless a power says otherwise, it can be used to move allied figures off the table. The lift power, for instance, specifically states it can't do this. And the author has stated in regards to transport, the need for a continued line of sight with that power means it can't be used for this either. But Fling is perfectly capable of helping crew members exit the battlefield. This is especially important because that means loot haulers can be flung off the board. Since flinging an ally requires the activator to be in close proximity to the target, making use of this power after about the first turn means the activator will likely be in close proximity to enemies as well, which means giving them heavy or combat armor is a good choice. But also, the secondary function of this power is really useful. Melee combat can be unpredictable and dangerous in Stargrave, so being able to just throw an enemy out of combat and leaving them stunned with just one action, then making use of the activator's power move and regular movement action, means it makes escaping from such a predicament a reliable option, assuming the enemy doesn't resist the fling and doesn't have the large trait. And in its 10 experience the team wouldn't get for simply attacking. Also, fling will move the enemy figure 6 inches, which is much further than the 1-inch push after winning a round of combat. And if the melee is happening on a raised surface with no guardrails, it's really easy to send an enemy off a raised location and deal some falling damage to them. Fling is a power with a lot of viable uses. It can move allies into position, help loot haulers escape, and keep enemy combatants away from a commander. Also, it's one of just 5 powers in the main Stargrave book with an activation number of just 8, meaning it's the most accessible movement power in the book, activating for any starting first mate on a 12 or 10 for a biomorph. However, it does have the limitation of being a touch power. It can't move the activator, and it can take some creative strategizing to deal with or take advantage of the stunning effect it causes to allied figures. However, I give Fling 5 out of 5 stars as it's a solid selection for what it does, but doing it all with the activation number of 8 is what really makes this a standout power that should at least be considered for any captain or first mate that's being created, as it works great as a regular part of their strategy or as a reliable option in their toolbox to help with a number of situations. Be sure to check out my other Stargrave content and comment below with your thoughts about Fling and whether you agree or disagree with my assessment. I'm Alan with Bricks and Blocks Gaming. Thanks for watching and play well.